I had a friend in college who served a mission for our church in El Salvador. He was so into papusas even before he left for El Salvador. And I thought, oh, okay, I definitely want to try this out. I like international foods. And I thought they were amazing too. And I was like, wow, I really need to figure out how to make these more, or just like get these into my life a bit more. And there's a little papusaria in the town that I went to college at, and so I'd frequent there a little bit and try out some of their different foods, and even had like a goal with one of my roommates to just get to try out all the different international restaurants that were in our college town. And there's quite a few. It was pretty impressive. But later years, I found a nice little simple recipe for papusas, and this is kind of just how I do them and modify it so that it's to our taste and our family. It's a quick and easy meal, super flavor packed, and readily available for lots of interesting toppings like guacamole and salsa and curdito. And then of course you could add some dairy things if you like, but if you want to go true plant-based, leave them out. For our papusas, we're going to take 2 cups of masa harina. And masa harina is not the same as cornmeal. Masa harina has a limestone that's kind of treated with it so that it tastes different and forms differently than just regular cornmeal. Right, next I'm going to take 2 cups of water because we want a 1-to-1 ratio for this dough that we're about to make. The corn is really absorbent. As you can see, it's already starting to become more thick. We're gonna let this sit for a little bit to make sure that it absorbs a bunch of the water and has a really nice moist texture. If I feel like it's just not as thick as I want it to be in the end, I'm gonna add just a tiny bit more. But as you can see, it thickens up quite nicely. You don't want it so wet as this, but we'll come back to it after a couple minutes and see how it's absorbed, and then we'll see if it needs more flour or not. For the papusa filling, you can do a couple different things, and I normally vary it quite a bit. Sometimes I use the bean filling that I use for Tanzanian meals, and other times I do something kind of special like this. Right here I've got probably about a quarter or a third cup of some onions that are diced up. I've got 1 garlic that I've minced, and I've got just a few teaspoons of oil, and I'm just gonna fry this up to get started. Right, once my onions and garlic are nice and fragrant and starting to get softened, I added in 1/2 of a teaspoon of oregano, 1/2 a teaspoon of cumin, and then I'm just gonna give it a little bit of salt to make sure that it has that saltiness we need. As always, taste for salt. Right, next I'm adding in 2 potatoes that I peeled, diced, and boiled. So these are already cooked. I'm just getting the flavors all together now. They're good and soft, and so they're not really gonna hold their shape, but that doesn't matter for what we're doing with them. All right, now I'm gonna add in a bunch of my black beans. You can also use pinto beans if you like. You can also add in some green chiles. I really like this. My kids don't like it as much, and so tonight I'm not gonna be doing that because I want them to eat dinner. It's a weekday. All right, so I've only done about 1/2 of some black beans, so that won't be an entire can of black beans if you're to do a can. And then again, we're gonna taste for salt, and then we'll call it good, and we'll get ready to start making some papusas. All right, now that we've got our filling ready, we're gonna come back and kind of test out our masa. And you can see that it's gotten a lot more dense. It's a little bit surprising to many because, gosh, you just wouldn't think it would be so absorbent, but it is. Also for a masa brand, I do like masa in the white bag that you find at grocery stores. It's a paper bag. But there's also Bob's Red Mill that you can get on Amazon, which I think is a pretty great masa harina. So first we're gonna take our little ball here like this, and I'm going to just start to make a little divot here, kind of just like a little nest. Next, I've taken just a small spoonful, it's like maybe 1/2 a tablespoon of some of my filling, and then I'm going to slowly bring in the edges. And I'm just slowly encompassing everything to make sure it kind of all just gets in there. And I'm covering it up so it's all just absorbed within the masa. Flatten it out, and that's what I've got. Peel this off, and we can just stick it on the pan. I've got a little bit of oil here in my pan, and I'm just gonna stick that on there. And we're just gonna fry it up till it's nice and crisp. All right, ideally you do want your oil to be nice and bubbly like this when you lay it down. It should be sizzly to get a nice and good crust. And also it doesn't absorb as much oil that way. So I'm going to take my previous ones and just turn them over. And that's about the color you want right there. It's looking good. All right, once both sides are kind of golden, you're good. Just kind of drip off a little bit of that oil and set it aside. And we can do that with a whole batch and then just take it to plate.